If you can focus on the places where you have control and maximize the potential for healing in each of them, you will see growth.
In my head.
Hey there everybody, it's Ryan Liberty. If you're new here, welcome, hello. This channel is all about humanizing mental health, and part of the ways that I do that is that I go out on walks and I talk about whatever mental health topic is in my mind, Monday through Friday here. So tonight I'm going to talk about the pathways to healing, and to me it seems like there are, I believe it was 5. I didn't plan very well for this video, but I promise you I have it like laid out in my head, and as I walk I will get it together. But there are, I believe it's 5 pathways that I find that there are to healing, and we're going to talk about those. So there are 5, as far as I can tell, pathways towards healing from mental health issues, mental disorders. Maybe we just feel like we're a little mentally off, whatever it is. From what I can find, just like logically, it just makes sense to me that there's only 5 ways. That's it. So the good news is that you have control over all 5 of these. The bad news is that you may have limited control over each of them depending on your specific circumstances. So we're going to talk about each of them. So let's start with the body. That's the most simple one. It's something I like to bring up a lot on this channel because people don't realize that your body is connected to your mental health. So in the most basic, simple way, we're all pretty familiar with fight or flight, that feeling that kicks in when we feel threatened, that often gets intertwined with PTSD and traumatic symptoms. And fight or flight or freeze, which could be dissociation, that's a body response, and it affects our mental health because when we're in that panicked feeling, we feel like we're threatened and we feel like we have to do something about it. We can't think straight. It shuts down our executive functioning, as it's called. It shuts down the higher processes in our brain so that we revert back to more emotional ways of thinking, and we kind of act a little bit more impulsively, and we do things on the spur of the moment without really carefully considering how it's going to affect us. So getting in touch with your body is important for your mental health. You know, when you're in that panic state, you can slow down your breathing as long as you're not having a full-on panic attack, and slow it down, change your posture. Again, body related here. Posture will have an effect on your mood. So, and I'm not saying it's going to change everything. I know some people are going to hear that and be like, oh, I've heard this before, yeah, whatever. You know, everything has to be taken into consideration, but posture has an effect. If you can open up your chest and pull back your shoulders, it gives your diaphragm room to move, and then you can breathe more slowly, and then you can slow down your heart rate because your lungs will take in more oxygen, you'll start to feel a little bit more calm, your heart rate will slow down, and that will give you the room to be able to engage your executive functioning again and to start thinking a little bit more logically. Other ways that your body is involved in your mental health is your emotions show up in your body, and people who are used to suppressing their emotions, shutting them down, not acknowledging that they're there, denying them, you may not realize that your emotions are actually housed inside of your body. They're not like some phenomenon that kind of like happens every now and then. We experience them here. So when we're sad, we typically start to get that emotion of crying, like that desire to cry. We feel pressure behind our eyes. We may feel some sinking kind of a feeling, as people describe it, or like a darkness maybe, or a hollowness inside of our torso somewhere. When we're angry, we get frustrated, we feel tense, we might stiffen up our shoulders, our neck might stiffen up when we're feeling threatened as well. We may feel our skin getting hot. When we are feeling embarrassed, we could feel like our skin's getting hot, and again, we may hunch over and try to like protect ourselves. Our posture changes. There's a car coming, so I'm going to move and we'll continue talking about the body. You know, as I'm walking from place to place, I don't think about what I was saying. So I just kind of turn the camera back on and hopefully pick off where I was. So I was talking about emotions, saying what anger feels like, embarrassment feels like in the body. What other emotions do we have? Joy typically feels good. Our body feels kind of like light. We might even feel like a little bit of like a tingliness. Not to be confused with anxiety. Anxiety feels like electricity. It feels, sometimes our muscles will get tense, like I described before. We might feel like more aware of our legs actually when anxiety and panic is going on because we feel like we need to run. Or we might try to cover our stomach, cover our vulnerable areas with our posture. So your body has a lot to do with your mental health. It's all related. It's all, the brain is connected to the rest of the body. It's not like your mind is something separate. So if you want to heal, depending on what's going on with you, I think it's relevant to everything, but you need to get in touch with your body and get in touch with what your emotions feel like. How do you ride through an emotion personally? Because everybody kind of rides through them differently. Emotions do go away. How do you typically hold your posture? Do you curl up in defensiveness? Do you move an arm? Do you cross your legs in defensiveness? Like everybody does something a little bit differently. Maybe you stand tall in defensiveness actually, which could also be a form of like clenching your muscles together. So you have to explore what it feels like for you. You can't just go off of what everybody else says. Sometimes, sadness looks like anger, and first we express it with rage and that tightness and that like feeling. But as we let the anger emotion ride out, we start that pressure that's like clenching in our fist and clenching in our body softens, and then it moves to our eyes, and it moves to sadness, and it moves to pain, and like sometimes it even feels, for me anyway, it feels like a scrunching of the face. So explore that, explore how that feels, explore how your body goes through things, and use that knowledge. If you get tense and you know that you crunch up, I just say that because that's typically like the defensive move, is to crunch up and get tight. Then if you see that that's going on, do things that help you to relax. So maybe taking a bath might help, or taking a shower, depending on what your preference is. Maybe you don't like to be touched like that. Maybe you get something that feels soft and nice to you and hold on to that. There's a car coming. So is there something soft that you can touch? Maybe you like soft feelings. Maybe you like round feelings. Maybe you like beady feelings. Maybe you like what kind of things do you like to touch? What kind of things do you like to see? What kind of things do you like to smell, to taste, to hear? Maybe when you're in an angry mood, that's not the time to play angry music because you need to soften up a little bit. So maybe that's the time to put on like waterfall sounds or pop music or something. Or you could be the type of person who just needs to like push the anger out quickly and just get rid of it. So maybe it is appropriate to listen to some angry music for a brief period of time, just to let it get out so you can soften up and move into the more sad emotions. Cooking, I tend to think that food, I don't know why I always go to food. I'm sure a lot of people go to food. And I'm not familiar with eating disorders, so please forgive me if I'm saying anything off kilter here. Let me know in the comments if I am. But I tend to think that food can be very soothing, and with eating disorders we kind of use it inappropriately to soothe. But if we're mindful about it, the smells that come with cooking and the physical activity of cooking, the taste, obviously, like these are very intimate sensations, smell and taste, because we don't let too much, like it's inside of us, it's inside of your mouth that you taste things, it's inside of your nose. I mean, it's inside when you hear things too, but it's more intimate. So when we sit down and eat, I think if you can be mindful about eating and really try to enjoy what you're eating, that can help relax you, as opposed to binge eating and just like throwing sugar and stuff that we know is probably not so great for us in to just kind of like settle our stomach. So those are just some ideas on how you can interact with your body to help heal your mental health, and we'll move on to another one. And I don't want to make this video so long, but there's a lot I have to cover, so we'll see. one thing that I forgot about the body, of course, I mean, everybody kind of already knows it, but if you can get exercise in, like walking, like I'm doing tonight, that kind of helps with your body, just getting things moving around. There's lymph fluid in your body. There's, it just benefits your body to keep it moving, to keep flexible, to like use your body. So I know for people who have some form of depression, a depressive disorder, that can be difficult, but if you can push yourself to just move it just a little bit each day, that will help. So, all right, that was the body. Emotions. I briefly touched on emotions in relation to the body, but our emotions, when our emotions are activated, we can't necessarily think rationally. Our emotions and our thoughts are intertwined, and thoughts are going to be the next one. I'm going to try to like do this quickly so that I'm not keeping all your time here, but your emotions and your thoughts are intertwined. In psychology, they're usually called your affects, but your emotions guide your thoughts. So when you're feeling angry, it colors your whole world. It colors how you see people. And when you're feeling angry, you're more likely to see people as threatening you, attacking you, and you feel like you have to kind of like fight back and get at them. Or sometimes people will feel angry and they'll feel like they have to shrink back away from that emotion because it feels too unnerving, it feels too unsettling in their body. And it comes out in our thoughts. It comes out in thinking like, well, why is that person looking at me? Like when we're just generally irritable and angry and frustrated and stressed or anxious, we start to see like, why is that person looking at me? What is their problem? What's their deal? And we start projecting usually at this point, and we start saying like, well, I wouldn't have to yell at you if you didn't do this. And like, we rationalize our emotions. We feel a certain way, and then instead of just feeling that way, we come up for a reason why we're feeling that way. And when we come up with a reason for why we're feeling that way, we can get into trouble because we may be coming up with reasons for something that there's not necessarily a reason to. I mean, yes, there's always a chain of events that led you to feeling something, but sometimes we just go through moods. Sometimes we just get in a funk. Sometimes we feel sad. You know, I was reading a lot of stuff today online that I wasn't feeling so great about, so I started feeling crappy, but I wouldn't like blame the way I was feeling on all the things that I was reading. Yes, I don't like those things, and yes, I would want to change them, but I wouldn't like give away the power inside of me and disown my own emotions and put them out there onto somebody else, or the news media or whatever it was that I was reading, social media, because it's happening inside of me, and it may suck that I have to feel this way, but it is what it is. So we have to be careful sometimes that we're not rationalizing and using our thoughts to try to control our emotions. We see this sometimes with obsessive compulsive disorder. We see this with ruminating in depression, where we are constantly telling ourselves something about ourselves, like, oh, I'm a horrible person, nobody likes me. This happens in social anxiety too, you know, nobody would want to be around me, I'm disgusting. And sometimes we are internalizing some of what's happening outside and translating the way we feel into a thought. Example, if you are in an abusive situation, you're gonna feel crappy because your emotions are being denied, they're not being validated. And so when you try to express yourself, it's being cut off, it's being squashed, and it's not being recognized. Now, feeling like you're not being recognized, feeling like things aren't going your way, you may rationalize, things aren't going my way because I'm a horrible person. Things aren't going my way because I'm a failure, because I will never get ahead in life, when really things aren't going your way because you're having a specific interaction with a specific person or group of people who are not acknowledging your emotions because for whatever reason, probably they were abused and they learned that emotions are something to be managed, kept under control, and locked down. So they try to do that to you because they can't handle their own emotions, because emotions are contagious and emotions do arouse in other people emotions, because that's how they work, that's the purpose of them. But you may take that emotion and start rationalizing something about yourself that's not even true. So you have to be careful when we have emotions not to mix them with our thoughts, and vice versa. We have to be careful of what we're thinking and monitor our thoughts throughout the day to see, are these helpful thoughts? Because just as much as our emotions can change our thoughts can change our emotions. It's a back and forth thing. It's not one way. So maybe you're feeling fine, but typically through your head, you're running these thoughts of, I'm a horrible person, I'm bad, this is terrible. So even though you're feeling fine, you start beating yourself up with your thoughts, beating yourself up, and then you start to feel like crap. Or opposite, to spin this in another way, you might be feeling like crap, but then in your mind you start thinking, but I'm grateful that I'm here. I'm grateful that I'm alive. I'm grateful that I have a place to live. I'm grateful that I have the internet to be able to learn. I'm grateful that I live in a country where I'm not struggling every day. Or if I do live in a country where I'm struggling every day, I'm grateful that I have access to water. And if that's what's going through your mind, I'm grateful that I have my family. I'm grateful that I have my friends. That sadness might start to transform into something more positive. And this is kind of the basis of cognitive behavioral therapy. So your thoughts and your emotions are another component, along with your body, in how you can have a path to healing. So changing your thoughts to positive thoughts, if it's within your control. Changing your emotions to positive emotions, if that's within your control. And that would be through things like self-soothing and doing things that you enjoy. Changing your body by doing things like exercising, getting in touch with those senses that you like, looking at artwork that's beautiful, listening to music that's beautiful to you. All of these are pathways to healing. I have 2 more pathways and then we're done. So one more thing about your thoughts and your emotions that may help is journaling, writing down in a journal. Maybe even if you don't like to do that, putting it somewhere that you can rip it to shreds, shred it, or putting it online somewhere private, whatever it is. Writing, I find, can help also with your thoughts and your emotions. So the last 2 pathways to healing from mental health and mental illness issues would be your behaviors. So the ways that you interact with people, the ways that you handle certain situations, this is obviously all related. All of these things are, we use them together. We use our thoughts, our emotions, our body to guide our behaviors. But the behavior is an important part of it, because you can know something, you can feel something, you can get your body experience of it, but behavior is the pattern that we carry out day to day. And we see this with personality disorders, where we get stuck in these habits and patterns of behavior that are not helping us. So we have to change those patterns of behavior if we want to be more healthy. So if we want to heal from an avoidant personality disorder, we have to challenge ourselves to not be so avoidant. We have to challenge ourselves to interact with people even when it's not comfortable. If we want to heal from something like a narcissistic personality disorder, we got to not seek the attention that we're constantly seeking. We have to kind of spend some time alone, and spend time alone feeling things, feeling vulnerable, and that's okay. So we have those, we have the behaviors, and then the 5th thing is the outside influences. I'm talking about people here mostly, but it could be environment, it could be living situation, work, whatever it is, outside, things that are outside of us. And this is still in your control, and I think people miss this. You choose who you want to be around. You choose who are your friends. I know you can't choose your parents sometimes, you can't choose your living situation, but you can choose what you do outside of. This is why I say not everything's always in your control, but you do have autonomy. You are able to choose what is your job, what is it that you do when it comes to friends, and how do you socialize, what people do you hang around, who do you choose as your partner, your intimate partner. All of that is in your control, and you want to choose people who are not going to enable you and reinforce the poor behaviors that I was mentioning, the patterns. So if you have a personality disorder, this is important, and this is why we choose our therapist carefully, because we want a therapist who's going to help us, not somebody who's going to not know what's going on and wind up hurting us in the process. What else did I have to say? Hold on, I'm getting distracted. So when we choose the people that we want to be around, we have to be careful here, because we don't want to just choose people who always tell us that we're great and always tell us that we're wonderful and who never want us to be vulnerable. Like, we want people who validate us. Yes, we want to be told that our feelings matter, but we don't want people who are just going to enable us. I'm saying this with caution, specifically to people who have narcissistic tendencies, because we become attention seeking, or maybe not even people with just narcissistic tendencies. That's just what always comes to my mind because I talk to a lot of people with these issues. But maybe we're borderline, for example, and we're impulsive and we act out, and we don't want people who enable that. We don't want people who make it so that's okay. We want them to accept that that's part of what we go through, but we don't want them to allow that to be the pattern that we do in the world. We want them to encourage us to not be that way. So even though they are accepting of it, they are still encouraging of us to be on the path towards healing and to change things about ourselves. We want people who believe that we can change as much as we believe that we can change, and we should believe that we can change. That would be part of your thoughts. So all of these areas are things to think about. You have control over your body, your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, and the people and environments that you put yourself in. Limited control depending on your circumstances. Not everybody's going to have full control of all 5, but you've got control, and if you can focus on places where you have control and maximize the potential for healing in each of them, you will see growth. And it may be hard, it may be difficult, but you will find that your mental health is improving. So one last thing to say about that is that you sometimes have to let people go out of your life, kind of like clouds. People flow into your life and people flow out of your life, and sometimes the people who we're around currently, maybe we've been around them for a really long time, and maybe originally when we first started interacting with them, they helped us grow, they helped us get out of a bad situation and into a better situation where our mental health improved. But sometimes we don't realize that just because we improved here, that doesn't mean that we're done healing, and there could be more to go. And the people who we are with, or the situations, the environment, whatever it is, sometimes is not going to help us get to the next spot in our healing, and we have to be aware of that. And sometimes hanging around those people we actually wind up all kind of like enabling each other because of the dynamics of the group. So breaking up the group can actually help everybody heal depending on the situation. So it's just something to consider. So what do you think about everything that I've said? Do you think that those are the 5 avenues for healing? Do you think that I caught everything? Do you think I'm wrong? You know, I really believe that we have power in all 5 of these areas in some capacity, and we should be mindful of that. And if we are trying to heal, if we are trying to get better, and I know we are here for that purpose, that's why you're here with me, then we should consider what can we do in each of these areas. You know, as I mentioned, journaling sometimes can really help, because then you can kind of like write it all down, and you could make a list like after this video if you feel so inclined, and write down like my body, my thoughts, my emotions, my behaviors, and the environment and the people I'm around. How can I control each of those to bring myself towards better mental health? So if you're so inclined, leave that below. That may be a little bit too revealing for you, but have you noticed a time in your life when you needed to change one of these things, and did you make a change, and how did that result in changing your mental health? Sometimes it changes for the negative, actually, when we make a change. That's always a risk. It's always a possibility, but we sometimes have to go through downs before we can get to the ups. So that's what I've got for you. This is my channel. I try to humanize mental health, and hopefully I've helped to humanize it a little bit here. I've got a car coming, nothing more human than that. I try to keep it real with you here. This is my situation. I am on the streets because that is where I'm able to film. So that's my frustrations and something that I deal with, but that's my situation. It is the choice that I make currently because I want to continue doing these videos. So there it is. This should be my 191st video, I believe. I'm trying to put together a special 200th video for my 200th video, so look out for that. I'm trying to hold myself accountable here by telling you. If you're new here, please subscribe. I do videos Monday through Friday on mental health and other car. It really doesn't make sense to me that there's always cars on this road in particular, but for some reason there just always is, so I'm just going to have to remember that. Please subscribe if you're new here. If you do subscribe, please hit the bell icon, and I realized today as I was on desktop, it's probably a little confusing because YouTube has a bell in the top. That's like your notifications and stuff, but once you hit the subscribe button, a bell should appear next to the subscribe button. Hit that if you want to get notified every time I do a video, because if you don't hit that, you won't get notified every time, and it helps me out when you watch these videos. YouTube likes to see that you care about me, that you think that this is popular. You know, this is as much about trying to game YouTube to get attention, and so if you like my message here of humanizing mental health, that helps me. Another way you can help me, I have a Patreon page. Go over there, contribute a small amount of money, get some extra stuff like a more intimate experience of me if that's something you're interested in. If it's not, that's okay too. But I appreciate you for being here as always. I appreciate you for caring about your own mental health, and we will be back on Monday to talk a little bit more.